Yo, Beth, that shit crazy.
Welcome, everybody, to All Even Live exclusive. My name is Barry Grant Jr., host of the All Even podcast. To my left is Mike Guido, host of Guido's Gridiron Blitz. Down at the bottom is the great Matt Catarazzolo. And who we have on the show today is linebacker Justin Marsh. How you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Doing well. Thank you guys for having me. Hope you guys had a good day so far.
Absolutely.
Ready to dive in a little bit. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So, how's everything going with you? How's your family, in regards to what's going on in the world?
Yeah, we've been doing well. Still down here in Texas, so been having some good weather. So that's been nice to take the kiddos out and about. So they kind of really don't know what's happening, which is nice. So we take them to our little playground in the backyard, bike rides, all that kind of stuff, and I'm still able to get my work in. So it's all positive.
Definitely. Yeah, Mike.
I'm so interested to know, Justin, because I think, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, and so is Barry, and I've been to Dallas. I live in New York, but I took a trip down to Dallas, and I saw that gigantic stadium, and it's just, you're not even at a football game at that point. You're living in a rock concert. Like that's what that stadium's like, man. So as a player, I just want to get your perspective. What is it like playing at that? Just like, I feel like they should hold the Super Bowl every year just from how theatrical it is. Tell me what that's like, man.
That is exactly what it is. It's kind of like a big giant show. You got all these lights going. It's different than any other stadium that I've really played in or been around. Yeah. Early in my career, coming out of college, I was playing with Kansas City Chiefs, and Arrowhead is like different. It's grungy, it's loud, it's like football. You know what I mean? It's like real football. And then, playing at different stadiums. I mean, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers, the terrible towels waving, and then playing for the Cowboys in the Cowboys Stadium is a completely different feeling. It's kind of like you actually have the whole world watching. Most people tune in to Cowboys games. They're always at a prime time where there's very few games on, so the whole world's kind of watching. That before going into it,
right? And
then when you're actually there, it actually feels like that. The lights are a little bit brighter. It's different. It's a different feeling that I really can't explain, but at the same time, it's a great feeling because all the hype about the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry World and all that is actually really real being a player, and all the lights. I mean, just the lighting and the theatrical feel to it. What you mentioned is exactly what it is.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, even just not being there myself ever, at least yet, but just seeing all the cool attributes and everything they got going for it, it's so incredible. And so if you've playing in comparison to the Cowboy Stadium and from Arrowhead, those are already two pretty big powerhouse stadiums. So Have you ever played in a visiting stadium where you were like, wow, I'd love to be the home team for this stadium?
I played at a team. Yeah, definitely the Pittsburgh Steelers, out down there in Pittsburgh. The terrible towels waving. That's a different feel. It gets cold up there. I think one time we played, there was a Sunday night football game, and it was all this rain, and you wouldn't have been able to tell because the fans are going crazy the entire time, and these towels are waving. So just being able to feel that energy from a opposing team perspective, I can only imagine what it's like to, be there and be at the home team when all these towers are waving and stuff, and being, out there on defense during that time.
Yeah, definitely, man. Now, Jay, very important that I need to ask you this question. Sean Lee. Yeah. Sean Lee is one of the most respected linebackers in all of football. He's been doing this a long time. Now, I'm sure being in the linebacker room with him, have you picked up any tips and stuff from him? Like, what is it like being in the actual room with a Sean Lee?
Yeah. So I'll kind of put it this way. So coming out early, my rookie year, and a couple years into the league, playing next to Derek Johnson and being in a room with DJ, and then going from there to spent a brief time out there in Miami. Yeah. So you got Lawrence Timmons, right? Who was the guy doesn't say much, but on the field and practice, beast. I mean, they got to tell dude to stop hitting people, in practice. And then I went there, spent some time with with Bobby Wagner and KJ, and those guys, man, they do everything the right way when it comes to watching film, taking care of the younger guys, making sure the younger guys get massages and leading like that, and then going out there and playing like that, and the communication is off the wall. And then Sean Lee is a different animal. I mean, the dude he's in the film room, and then he's studying. I mean, this guy doesn't leave the building until 8, 9 o'clock at night because he's dialed in.
Right.
He has all, and then he knows how to simplify it. He knows how to, like, the play recognition before the play starts, I think has to be one of the greatest attributes that I've seen from a linebacker that I've been next to. Yeah. And that's no disrespect to anybody. Right. Derek Johnson, I mean, the dude had the most instinctive linebacker I had ever been around. KJ very similar. Then, B Wags is just an animal overall, tackling machine, get down and dirty, can make plays whenever you need him to. Same with KJ. And then Sean, man, the dude studies and he knows it and he trusts it. And then it's like, you cannot keep this dude. The only thing everybody knows is the whole injury thing, but you cannot keep this dude off the practice field going 200 miles per hour. It's like, you got to tell Sean to chill. Like, there's been times where I'm the scout running back, going through drills, and he's hitting me like we're in the middle of a game. and then if you get something wrong, even if a coach says something wrong, even if it's a player who's describing the play wrong or something, in the film room, he brings it up. He's not scared to take initiative and actually speak on it and give his thoughts, on that situation. So I think that's what makes him a great player, is trying to understand what the coach is thinking. They also putting it in the player's perspective, not being afraid to talk in that linebacker room. So if there's anything I picked up, is the way you study and then the communication inside of a meeting room, as opposed to just watching film, letting the coach talk, and then, going on. And that's why I think Sean, I think he still got some ball in him. And I also think that he'll be a great ass coach one day.
Definitely.
Yes, sir.
If Sean Lee could stay healthy, I think he's got a bunch of years left.
What
he brings to the field is just really, really valuable.
He's ridiculous. I mean, every time we played against the Giants, that Sean Lee there, I mean, he's having 14, 15 tackles a game.
Yeah, man.
Sean Lee in his
best person on the field when he's healthy, man.
That was the thing. Sean Lee in his earlier years, probably before you even got there, right? Sean Lee in his earlier years, I remember watching as a Cowboy fan. He was on the field, and the Cowboys' defense was a different defense.
Yeah.
He didn't play, and they like Swiss cheese. Like, they were giving up everything. And then when Sean Lee comes on, they're stopping everybody. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Most definitely.
Something I'm really interested to talk about with you is coaching, because you were there with Jason Garrett.
Yep.
And you were there with Mike McCarthy. So, and I'm also interested to see, how the defensive coordinator and everything like that situation changed, because you went from the Rod Marinelli, Chris Richard regime over to Mike Nolan. And you heard the Cowboy fans, I'm sure. Well, Mike Nolan's defense stinks. This is terrible. Everything like that. So you, as a defensive player, as a linebacker, what were the differences in coaching, and what was that shift like?
Okay. First of all, I just want to apologize for using my words when talking about Sean Lee, but that's just the type of passion that guy.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. Don't worry about it, bro.
It's like, man, I could not use it because I feel like I'm talking to Sean. But just within that question about the coaching change and the defensive coordinator and being a player who got to see both regimes, they're two completely different styles. And I'll start off with the head coaching situation. And Jason Garrett, great coach, could bring and get the most out of a player by repeatedly saying and doing the same things every single day. Being on guys and 6 a.m, the same energy, the same saying the same things. Everybody's in the hot tub at 6 a.m. He's walking in there, what we doing? His energy was different, so he demanded that, and he brought that. And then you also have Coach McCarthy, Super Bowl champion, comes in there, and his whole demeanor is like, man, we're, put this work in. Let's do it fast. Let's do it crisp, because that's what happens on the field. Games go by so fast. So you got to be on your P's and Q's when everything's, shifting and everything's kind of moving in a moment. And then he takes care of his players from a rehab standpoint is one thing I noticed. Getting a proper recovery, doing all that. He's I would say he's more of a player's coach, so he's approachable. You can laugh with him, and Jason Garrett, great coach. And that's no disrespect to him, not calling him a player's coach, because he is a player's coach, depending on what kind of player you are. You know what I mean? So it all depends. I mean, if you're a guy who, like Sean Lee, who goes to work and everything like that, you're going to benefit from his coaching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there are certain players who need a coach like that brings it out of them, and that's where Coach Richard and Rod Marinelli came in at. Those guys, they didn't take anything lightly from a simple walkthrough. If you're messing up, if your energy's not the right way, they're bringing it up and they're bringing it to a man's attention, and they're adequate about exactly what they want and doing it exactly right every single time and doing it with, all effort. And then now I think Mike Nolan coming in, it was a different situation. Here we are not being able to even meet the new staff, not being able to even be around the coaches. And then we shift our entire defense to, a 3-4 pretty much, or a multiple, however you want to call it. But I say pretty much a 3-4 defense that we hadn't been. I mean, we've been, a run and gun defense, set up and play fast and, hit stuff. And one back, one gap, simple. So I think a lot of people, fans would come out and say, talk stuff about Jalen or Layden or whatever the linebackers were, but you got to understand that the defense we've been running prior to that was one back, one gap. So what gap you can hit, and you can hit it fast. And that's no different than what, Bobby and KJ played. That's no different than, what a lot of other teams play, is that 4-3 hard nose set up and break, hit style defense. Right. But I think just switching to a 3-4 and not really being able to be in person, mind you, we're on iPads, kind of we're on iPads learning the defense. Yeah. Now have been able to have walkthroughs and all of that, and all of a sudden the season kind of starts, and then by the time we're able to get on the field and run and do practice and camp and stuff, we got a game to really prepare for. And then just with all that, I think a lot of it had to do with the big changing the defense with no off season, and not being able to have walkthroughs, not being able to properly talk through problems that would occur normally in the off season came during the season. You know what I mean? So it's like those problems that came during the season on the field, it's things that we didn't really prepare for. I wouldn't even say prepare for, because the coaches did a good job of preparing, but how would I put this? But the situations that switched during the game, we really had no answer for it, because it was never brought up in the off season program. You know what I mean? Because you're not able to go against our offense, and they give, they challenge you to make it hard. So I think a lot of it had to do with switching the defense. And then, like you said, you go from Rashard, who's this loud, and Marinelli, they're loud, they demand it. They'll go out there and demonstrate it. Like Coach Rashard will cleats to practice, and he'll go out there and he'll demonstrate it for you. He'll get in your face and something's not right. If you get an interception in practice, he's jumping, which he's running to. So I think the energy switch. Mike Nolan, a little bit more soft spoken, a little bit more, we'll get it right type of mentality, as opposed to a demanding, I want to see it right, not a we'll get it right, well, let's talk about it, and then kind of not really brush it under the rug, but it's just the overall energy aspect, I think, is what was different for the defense, as well as going to a whole new defense. So now you're not only like Phil, it would be different if you still had Coach Rashard and Marinelli, and you're kind of switching some things up because you knew exactly what they demanded from an energy standpoint. But now you go out there and you're a little bit confused as far as like, okay, how do I play this? What's going on? And then you go and ask a coach who is more like, we'll get it right, just stick to it. Everything will kind of happen naturally as time get going. So I think that's why we're able to play some good football, in the middle towards the end of the season on defense. Yep. Not so well early on because of the switch and the tone of energy.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up. Oh, no, it's all good. I'm really glad you brought up Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, because I thought when Vander Esch was drafted, and it was right around when Jalen Smith was able to finally be healthy and they would start a full season together, and they looked like that Dallas had, their next great linebacking tandem. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen how important a good linebacking tandem can be to the success of a football team.
Oh, for sure.
Look at the Buccaneers with Levante David and Devin White, right? They were the crux of that entire defensive unit. So Yeah, when you highlight all the changes on the defensive side of the ball in terms of coaching and schemes and everything with Dallas, do you think, or what is it about Van Der Esch and Smith, that tandem, that puts the confidence that they can be one of the top linebacking tandems in football?
Yeah, I think along with that, Jalen and Leighton kind of swap positions. You know what I mean? So Jalen was taken out of the middle, and Jalen was put more on tight ends and and stuff like that, which isn't a bad thing. But having Jalen in the middle, you know, you got your physical downhill linebacker in the middle, not really having to do too much. And then Leighton is more of a tight end body, so he can play man to man on tight ends, and that's no knock to Jalen, because Jalen can play tight ends well. Jalen can play the running backs well and all that type of stuff. But having a big hitter in the middle is such an advantage, because I will say that Jalen is quicker than Leighton on, you know, quicker steps and stuff like that, falling back and stuff like that. And Leighton is longer than Jalen, so he's able to set the edge. He's able to be man to man on times. He's able to play in space a little bit more because he's so long. His arms are long. We know how many tackles he made with his arms his rookie year.
Right.
Just being so tall and stuff like that. So I think that switch kind of hurt, just because it was something that was unfamiliar. Now you're switching, you know, going to a different defense. Now you're playing a different position and different techniques than you were, you know, the prior years. And then also the consistency part of it. When you get Leighton and Jalen on the field at the same time consistently, I think that breeds confidence. So I think there were times where, you know, Leighton's playing banged up and he hadn't been able to be next to Jalen for, you know, weeks, haven't been able to practice with him for a while. And then all of a sudden they throw him in a game together. Now the communication might not be what it used to or anything like that. But I will say that they both do what they do, you know, in at the highest level. And I feel like if the Cowboys put them in that situation where they're able to do what they do great at the highest level and don't try to have them go outside their box, I think they'll be one of the best linebacker tandems that, you know, this game's ever seen. I mean, you got two. I mean, Leighton 6'5", Jalen 6'4". I mean, you got some monsters who can run and hit.
Great athletes.
Yeah, who can run and hit. You put them in the right situation. You know, you blitz Jalen a little bit more because Jalen is a problem. One-on-one with a running back, Jalen can be a problem. But
Jalen in college rushed the passer a lot.
Yeah, but he didn't really do that this past year.
Yeah,
so I mean, he's out there in space with tight ends and stuff. Like, he can do that, but I feel like him being able to see what's in front of him and being able to go downhill and stuff, I think that you know, that'll really impact his game.
So Justin, like, you know, being undrafted, I always feel that undrafted rookies, they have a different edge to them.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, did you use that to your advantage to try to make teams? And, you know, you've had some injuries, you know, during your career that's kind of like set you back, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Is it a little frustrating that, you know, these injuries do come up and, you know, you're trying to make your career, trying to establish yourself, and then something happens? Like, is there any frustration that comes with that? Or is it just, listen, this is a part of the journey, I understand what the process is, and, you know, I'm just going to keep pushing forward?
Yeah, whenever something really doesn't work out exactly how you planned it, it's always going to be a little bit frustrating. I know for me, coming out as a rookie, I had a few teams that, being undrafted, I had a few situations or offers that I could have accepted, but Kansas City, they called me towards the end of the draft, and they're like, and I'm thinking like, hey, I'm about to get drafted. I get this phone call, they're like, well, we're not going to draft you, but we're gonna go a different route, but we still want you to sign with us. And I remember just this burning feeling of I don't even, like, just determination to prove somebody wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. So then they go and they draft a linebacker. After, you know what I'm saying? Like, after they called me, I'm like, really? So instead of running away from it, you know, I took it on, you know, full speed. Yeah. And you know, I'm balling in camp. I'm doing what I do. I got this edge, this chip on my shoulder, this, you know, this personal vendetta to prove that I belong, you know, here in this situation. Right. And, I'm rotating in with the starters, and sure enough, we get to the first preseason game. Linebacker goes down. I'm in there. Eric Berry returns. I'm in there with the starting defense. You know, so it's all feeling good. And my knee kind of swelled up at the end of the game, and I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, man, I just played a full game. I just played a whole game. Like, you know, my knee kind of swelled. I'm like, okay, I'll still get it checked out. went got MRI. They're like, yeah, it's like a grenade went off your knee. I said, what? I'm like, but they're like, oh, not to scare you, but it is, you know, a microfracture injury. Wow. It is something that some players bounce back from, some don't. You know, what kind of player do you want to be? If you know, that's basically how it was. It was like some players bounce back from it, some don't, you know, and what kind of player are you willing to do what it takes? And, you know, fortunately I was able to do that. You know, come back the next year, you know, started off fourth string, work my way back up, starting again, break my hand against the Raiders. Got put on IR, come back that following year, you know, starting in the off season, you know, had the most turnovers in the off season. John Dorsey gets fired, you know, and things change. And unfortunately, you know, they wanted to go a different route with some more size at linebacker. So, you know, they make a couple trades. And from there, you know, my career was a journey, you know, go to Miami, go to Seattle, and with Dallas for 4 years. So, yeah, those injuries, it's always like, what if I wouldn't have, you know, got that microfracture injury and I was able to play as a rookie with that hunger. And we all know that, you know, you can have all this determination and hunger in the world, but you know what I'm saying, your body and stuff only lets you do what it's able to do.
Right.
And I think that was the most frustrating part, was not being able to jump as high as I used to be able to. Like, I used to be able to walk on the basketball court, you know, not warm up, jump and dunk. Yeah. Now it's like I got to get warmed up. I got to
stretch for like an hour.
yeah, and all that stuff. And then while all that's kind of going on, you know, the clock's still ticking. So that's the frustrating part, is like, you know, you look up and, you know, you're going into year 7 and you done had a certain amount of injuries, and you always like, what if this would have, you know, taken different. So it is frustrating. It gets frustrating, but then you kind of regroup and focus on why I'm still here. You know, I still got opportunity, and I still got opportunity, you know, be a good teammate and still prove my worth. So that's something, you know what I'm saying, you fight for every off season, to get in the best shape, to, you know, prevent injuries and stuff like that. And then you go out there and you compete.
Definitely.
Yes, sir.
You know, I always found the story of undrafted free agents to be really, really interesting, because and there's so many of you in the league.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are so many. What was the number? I forget. It was like a third or something like that of the league is undrafted crazy. Or something like that. Yeah, it's unbelievable. You know, but I've always been curious about, because undrafted free agents were, of course, undrafted, right? They right. 3 days of the draft go by and, you know, your name doesn't get called. Is there, you know, a period of time, and I'm assuming there is, at least to an extent, is there a period of time where you just, like, you feel like you missed out, right? Like you missed out on the, you know, putting the cap on and, you know, having that whole experience? Or is it just like, all right, time to get to work?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'll put it like this. It's kind of like you feel like, man, I really missed out. You know, the what if factor of like, man, what if I would have got drafted? Right. You know, the journey would have been a little bit differently. Maybe you wouldn't have, you know, maybe you wouldn't have been on such short of a leash, I should say, when it came to practice and plays and answering questions right.
That's a good point.
Stuff like that, because that's the reality of it. I mean, if a player go and get drafted, you're in the same, you know, position room as him, he can miss 10 questions and they won't bat an eye. But the moment you're undrafted and you miss 1-2 questions, it's like, man, they thinking about replacing me. Man, I might not make it. But that pressure, if you can handle it, it actually makes you a better player. Right. And then you stop seeing where you got drafted. You stop counting numbers and you start competing. You start thinking like, man, that's really a chip on my shoulder, because I feel like I belong here. And then you see certain guys that you like, man, I'm undrafted, but this dude got drafted in the second round, but I know I got game.
Right.
And then you go and you like, man, I can really ball and stick up with this player who got drafted in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth round. And then with that, once you really get in there, is most people don't ask you, you know, when you got drafted, you know, none of that stuff. So I think that's dope. I think when players got respect for game, they don't even ask. They just, I know multiple times I've been, you know, on teams, and definitely here with the Cowboys, where I'm practicing, I'm playing and stuff like that. And they're like, man, what round you get drafted? And I'm like, man, I was undrafted. And it was like, for real? Right. And then it's like, yeah. And then it's like, then that kind of gets you, you know, a little bit get you a little bit excited and a little bit happy that like somebody noticed and actually thought that like, man, you should have been drafted. I'm like, man, I knew I should, you know what I'm saying? It's like I knew I wasn't tripping. I knew I had what it took, but but yeah, you do get I think it just generates a chip, a well-needed chip, and you're able to go out there and compete, and you are on a shorter leash, so you got to be on your game all the time, which I don't think is bad. I think that is actually why you see so many undrafted players in the league, is because they have to fight every single day.
Yeah,
you have to have your back against the wall every single day, as opposed to some players might already have it made. They might already have the dream crib they wanted. They might already have the cars they wanted. They might already have the elite status that they wanted to reach and stuff like that. But when you're undrafted, you're constantly fighting because you're constantly being looked over.
Yeah,
and that's just what it is.
Yeah, man. Like you're just another guy, so you got to prove yourself more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Respect.
Yeah, I feel like a chip on your shoulder is not the worst thing to have when you're playing a competitive sport. So it's definitely something that's
exactly.
a blessing also.
Exactly.
So, Justin, something I wanted to ask. So something I found really interesting is that of the 4 NFL teams you've been a part of, you've been in the AFC West, the AFC East, the NFC West, and most recently the NFC East. So what I want to know is there anything about playing in 2 different conferences? Now you play for the AFC and the NFC respectively. Mm-hmm. Is there anything unbeknownst to people as fans in terms of glaring differences between the 2 conferences in terms of maybe difficulty or atmosphere or anything like that?
Yeah, so how I would say is the NFC East, to start off with that, because that's the one I'm most recent with. It is a little bit more, how would I put it? It is a little bit more chippy. You're playing against the Eagles, Redskins. It's a little bit bigger of the rivalries. Now, when I was in Kansas City, for the longest time, I'm like, man, not really who's our rival, but we're playing certain people and, we're just beating up on them. And, I think they said it was the Raiders or something like that at the time. And it didn't really feel too much like a rivalry. You know what I mean? And then the NFC East, you come here and you play against the Eagles and, it's a little bit more chippy. Pregame is always crazy because you can get into an argument with one of the players right before the games. But in other conferences, it wasn't really like that. But I will say, when I played in Seattle, you could definitely tell the energy aspect of it. And then certain teams in certain conferences kind of play, I wouldn't even say play the same, but they kind of do. So, I mean, Seattle and, the Rams, everybody knows it's a lot of boots and play actions and things like that. And then obviously you got Kyler Murray and them doing things a little bit differently. But in Kansas City, it was a lot less run. You know what I'm saying? In the AFC West, it was a lot less run. It was more passing and passing attack when Phillip Rivers was there and when Peyton Manning was there early, in 2015. So you do see some similarities depending on the conferences and things like that. But the only things I haven't really been able to figure out for the NFC East, as far as like a similarity, I haven't really been able to figure it out. I mean, it's more like balance. Everybody runs, everybody passes. But if they can run the football in the NFC East, then so they got a good shot at winning. We saw what the Redskins was able to do. When they tote that rock, it was a little bit differently. Obviously, when Carson Wentz was there and Jay Ajayi and all them was there, when they was able to run, they always had success. When Zeke's able to get going, we have success. So I think there is some glaring, similarities, and I think there's also a little bit of differences in rivalries and stuff like that, depending on what conference you're in.
Justin, when Dak went down last year, I remember that game. It was like, the air just got sucked out of the place, right? And everybody was, they looked dejected. Everybody was really concerned, and because Dak is well respected around the league.
Oh yeah.
What is his leadership quality, or what is his leadership like? On from your perspective in regards to like what he brings to the table, and how important he is to Dallas's success going forward.
Yeah. Dak is, the best leader I've been around personally. And not even from a, on the field standpoint all the time, but off the field standpoint in the locker room. I mean, he talks to everybody. I mean, whether you were undrafted, whether you just came from another team, whether, we picked you up off the street. I mean, he talks to you. And, how it's just funny seeing, reporters and stuff talk about how, this quarterback is flying out here to go do stuff with his receivers. I'm like, dude, Dak's been doing that his entire career.
Right.
I'm like, that's nothing new. You know, all his guys, and that's how they respect him, because they've been doing that well before it even became popular for people and quarterbacks to do that. Dak was already doing it.
Posted
ago.
on a page and all that stuff.
So it's like things that Dak never posted about, he was already doing when it came to, having his receivers in, stretching, doing yoga, taking care of them that way. That's always been a big thing. And then, I mean, for Christmas, I think he got the entire locker room, go-karts. It's like, I mean, he's so unselfish. I mean, there's random times where we come in and we have Beats headphones from Dak, and it's like this would like an encouraging letter, like, we got this, just to keep fighting as a team and a family. Love you guys. And that's to everyone in the locker room. That's if you just got there, if you just got there and you didn't get headphones or a letter, he'll make sure that you get that the next day. You know what I mean? Like, or he'll give you his personally. So, I mean, he'll take his shirt off his back for his teammates. And I think that's why everyone was so devastated when he went down, because a guy like that, you're like, man, this guy shouldn't, he shouldn't face adversity. Like, he really shouldn't face adversity. You're like, man, you just feel so bad because it's a different relationship than just that being your quarterback. You're like, man, that's the heart and soul of this football team. That's the heart and soul of the locker room. If I had a problem, I could reach out to Dak. I mean, even when I had lost my brother in 2017, right before I went to the Cowboys. Right. And when I went there, Dak was one of the first people who actually knew about it and was like, man, I'm sorry to hear that. If you need anything, just let me know. And I'm like, man, that's, that's Dak. That's cool.
Yeah,
being new, that's just big respect. But that's not, I mean, he does a lot of things in the community. He's just Dak, man, just a phenomenal guy, phenomenal leader. And then he goes out there with the right practice mentality every single day. Like, I mean, the whole warm-up video that everyone sees. I mean, he does that before practice, and just the guy he's all about business. He's all about relationships. He's all about winning. And then when you see what he's able to do in the third and fourth quarter of games, and he's getting hit and he's running around and he's putting it all on the line. I mean, if you think about the Giants game, I mean, that's exactly what he's doing, putting it all on the line,
right, and
going and giving us a chance. And I mean, I remember in Seattle when he's flipping over the end zone, just what I'm saying, like, you don't see a lot of quarterbacks doing that, and that's why you gotta respect him, because you're like, man, he'll lay it on the line. I mean, yeah, that's all I gotta say about Dak. But man, the dude is a tremendous leader, tremendous person, and I think the Cowboys did the right thing by keeping him there, because you just can't lose a guy like that, player and person.
Respect.
You're making me like Dak a little bit more than I think.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man.
I'll tell you what, man. Like, look, I've always been a Dak fan. I really have.
Yeah.
There's nothing that Dak has done that I can, really, throw a wrench in it and ruin it for everybody. Like, he's just a good guy, and that's what everybody's been, telling me. And then this story that you just told us now, with the leadership and everything like that. I mean, that blows me away. My initial thought also, I got to be honest with you, Jay, it's $40 million, a lot of money. And historically, I mean, and this, right? Like,
yeah.
Historically, quarterbacks that make that much money don't have a ton of success because it's just the lack of building that the team can afford to do around you. You know what I mean? Like, you look at that contract, and let's just kind of have this conversation. $40 million, a lot of money, Jay.
Oh yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I mean, I don't know. Like, you want to keep them around. I understand that, and they absolutely should have. But do you think that that'll hinder their success going forward?
I don't. I think it's a smart move, just based on showing your respect for Dak. I mean, coming off an injury, making that much money. I mean, that shows you how respected he is. And then when you have a young offense like they have, and you got Amari Cooper, you got Michael Gallup, you got CeeDee Lamb, you got Tony Pollard, you got Zeke, you got Blake Jarwin that we didn't have, and then you got the O-line that we missed out on pretty much all year. I mean, he wasn't really protected, at the time, but I feel like you really haven't lost any of those pieces. And if there's a greater time to give Dak that money, I don't know when that would have been. I mean, do you wait until next year when if you're like, hey, do you wait until you franchise tag him and then you wait until he walks or another team comes and gets him, and then you're like, man, we have Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and
nobody
we don't have a quarterback to throw it to him. So I feel like yeah, that is. But I feel like you also have you still have Jalen. They still, you still have Layden. You still have a good defense. Which I'm sure they'll draft some secondary guys. But I mean, bringing in Keanu Neal, bringing in a lot of these players can help. And at the same time, if we're being honest, I mean, with the whole COVID and the restructuring of the cap and stuff like that, guys have to take way less deals. So it's like regardless. Right. I mean, that's why you don't see a lot of guys taking, making all this money outside of, like you said, Dak. But most of these guys are signing 1 year, $3 million contracts, minimum contract. I mean, you got guys that's not really making a lot of money because of the cap. So I think it was more of like I see why they did it, because they're like, man, dudes have to take pay cuts anyway. Right. So why not just pay Dak when everybody else has to take a pay cut anyway? So we can try to load up on talent, because it's not that much money. Like, people can't make deals, and then once you get one elite player that signs for a lower contract, that just sets the bar for the next
floodgates open. So,
yeah, it was a business move. I think we all know Jerry's a business guy.
Of course.
So it's like, you're able to kind of sit back and be like, oh, let's use this cap, restructuring and the lowering of the cap to kind of, you're going to steal some players. I mean, you got great guys and great players that's playing for, not a ton of money this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I remember watching Dak's rookie year. I'm a diehard Giant fan my whole life, so I remember thinking when he came in, like, oh no, we got to deal with this guy and Carson Wentz now in our division. So I was starting to sweat, So now the window in the NFC East, Carson Wentz has now been traded. Washington doesn't really have a long-term solution at quarterback. This kind of is a prove-it year for Daniel Jones, and Dallas just locked up Dak for a little bit longer. What I'm interested to know is, from someone who's played with both of them, you were in Seattle with Russell Wilson and you were in Dallas with playing with Dak. To me, they've always kind of been sort of mirror images of each other.
Yeah.
Sports around the league kind of say the same things, great leader, great intangibles, similar skill sets, big guys that can move, nice arm. So from a guy who's played with both of them, how similar really are Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott?
It's tough. I know statistically they can be kind of similar, but I see two different kind of quarterbacks, with being Russell Wilson. With him not having as much height, it's harder for him to just stand there in the pocket. Yeah. So what you do is you get him outside the pocket, and you get him, to be able to throw on a run. You get him to be able to, drop back and step up and then open a hole. And I think there's not a lot of people who can move like that in the pocket. So I think Dak can move in the pocket for sure, but I don't think the overall plan is to drop back, let him step up and kind of create space and stuff like that. Like, Dak will stand in the pocket and he'll deliver a strike. And I don't think a lot of people really see exactly how accurate he is. But I mean, the dude is stand in the pocket and throw a strike, and then he can get out of the pocket and make plays. I think Dak is a little bit more of a true quarterback pocket passer who can move. And I think Russell Wilson is an elite quarterback, with his legs, being able to throw on the move, being able to be a great playmaker. I think they're both awesome elite playmakers. I just think they do it a little bit differently. Like, I think Dak's standing in the pocket ability kind of gets overlooked. Him taking a hit and throwing a strike. You know what I'm saying? I think that kind of gets overlooked. So I think they're both great. I think Russell Wilson is more of the elusive, get out the pocket, throw a strike, you know what I'm saying, make a great play when it's time to make a play. And I think Dak will stand in the pocket, get hit with everything, and he's still getting up, and he's still fighting each and every time. So I think they are similar in certain ways, but then I also think that they're a lot different in certain aspects of their game. Both are great leaders. Obviously, Russell Wilson's faith, and he doesn't let that not be known. So just his faith and the amount of respect his teammates have for him is huge. The amount of respect that Dak's teammates has for him is huge. It's kind of I can see how you can compare the guys with stats and stuff like that. And playing with both of them was awesome. But like I said, I think Dak's ability to stand in the pocket is a little bit overlooked. And I think Russell Wilson, once he gets out of the pocket or he steps up, I mean, it's like I don't know a lot of people who can stop him when he does stuff like that. It's like his receivers just know
where to be,
where to be and what he's going to do.
Right.
And I think Dak's game plan is a little bit different. Stand in the pocket, kind of shred some people that way. And then when I have to move, I will. If I have to try to run over a guy for a first down, I'm doing it. Russell Wilson is more like I'll try to use my elusiveness and get out of bounds or slide. I mean, it's hard I don't know, man. Dak will try to run you over in the side. If that means his team gets to win. So I think they're both tremendous competitors.
Definitely. Like, sometimes Dak reminds me of McNabb a little bit in regards to how he moves in the pocket.
Uh-huh.
But Jerry Jones, we all know, is a character, Justin, right?
Yes.
Like, do you have any stories in regards to your interactions with Jerry Jones? Because he's such an interesting person to hear about and talk about and read about. Like, you have to have something. Like, I'm sure.
See, I really don't. I remember getting here and be like, man, that's Jerry Jones. You hear all this stuff. Like, man, that's Jerry's world, all this kind of stuff. And I'm walking past him. He shakes my hand. Welcome, I'm saying, welcome to Dallas. We're glad to have you. And I was like, man, that's super professional of him.
Yes.
It's just funny because seeing him, talking to him is completely different than what I've seen in the media and stuff. I'm like, man,
is that the same guy?
Yeah, I'm like, he shakes my hand, he's quiet. Whenever he talks to us, he talks about, the history of the Cowboys and, the business side of it and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, every time I've been around him, it's always a handshake and a smile and, have fun today, for the game, or good luck today and all that kind of stuff. So I really don't have a story. I wish I would, but always seeing the stories that are out there in the media and stuff. And then I'm like, man, I just saw him the other day and it was like, it's a completely different guy than what I've seen. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, cool.
Gotta love Jerry. Jerry.
Who doesn't love Jerry, man?
All right.
You've been in the NFL for 5 years, Jay, and I don't want to take a shot at your pride, or I don't want you to take it, dig too deep into your I guess your own pride. But were you ever afraid to play against somebody? You ever look over? You see you're playing Aaron Donald or something like that one week.
I got a story for you. So I got a guy for sure. Okay, you know Cam Newton, and it's like, man, you see this dude on TV, and you're like, man, he's big. And I remember we were warming up playing against the Panthers, first game of the season a few years ago, and I look over, and I'm kind of in the back of the line, well, at the 50-yard line where the other teams over there and our offense or whatever is warming up and all that kind of stuff. And I look over, I'm like, man, that's Cam Newton. I'm like, but he's all the way at the other end. So I'm like, man, dude that's a big dude. So when I got, I think we had a linebacker went down or something. And I'll go in there, get a couple plays. I go in there and I'm standing next to Cam Newton. I'm like, this dude is a giant, right? I'm like, this dude is massive. I'm like, man, like I knew he was big, but when he got his pads on and all that, I'm like, bro, this dude is a monster. So I was like, all right, but let's get to it.
Right.
So of course, McCaffrey comes in motion. I'm like, okay, some type of read option. So I'm like, man, pridefully, my pride got in the way. I'm like, man, I want to smack this dude. I was like, I'm not the biggest linebacker. I want to smack this dude. So McCaffrey comes in motion, and they sure enough do read option. I checked to see if McCaffrey has the ball, and I could have sworn Cam Newton pulled it, and I went to try to light him up. Sure enough, McCaffrey has the ball, gets around the corner, and I'm like, man, my own pride got in the way just because of how tall and this dude is, and get next to him, he's laughing about it, whatever. They end up getting a first down. Probably one of my worst football plays that my pride actually got in the way because. I was like, it wasn't even that I was scared or anything like that. It was more so I was excited to play against this dude. So actually, Cam Newton, man, that's a big quarterback in real life. He's a big dude.
Cam
you don't
listed
realize.
right now,
Yeah, you don't
6'5",
realize.
245.
You don't realize how big he is because obviously he's on the field but like he's a big dude, man.
That's a big dude. Especially at quarterback. You just look at him like, dude is But,
wow, Cam Newton's what? Cam Newton's 6'5" or 6'4", 245. That is a monstrous human being.
then you put his pads on and
yeah, exactly. That's just
and he's fast.
Exactly.
And he can run, and that's the one thing I was like, man, let him please not pull this ball and run with it. I was like, man, I kind of want him to just to test my own ability. You probably give it away. So that was fun though. That was fun. That was definitely somebody I always wanted to play against and got the opportunity to actually be on the field with him. So that was dope.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's someone you always wanted to play against. Was there anyone that you were a little starstruck by, or like, whoa, that's actually him? Is there anyone you've had kind of a moment like that with?
Let me see. I would say Peyton Manning. In 2015, when he was with the Broncos, and being able to see Peyton Manning and watching him warm up. So I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. And I grew up in Danville, Illinois, which is about an hour and 30 from Indianapolis. So
nice.
I think the last time I saw him before then, I was actually like young. I was actually in like grade school or early middle school or something like that, at a football camp there. And I got to, shake his hand, high five and whatever. I thought that was so cool. And actually being able to like be on the field with him and kind of warming up and seeing him warm up, I think that was like something that was like starstruck. And it was just like, just that type of situation. It's like, man, this is somebody I grew up that was on my TV, all the time. And then I'll tell you guys another funny story. This will be a good one. So I grew up, like I said, close to there. So my family's kind of split between Bears fans and Colts fans. So I grew up, a Bears fan, stuff like that. And there's one guy that I got to meet in person, and it was like I wanted to rip him a new one, and that was Jay Cutler. And I'm like, I finally get to Miami, and I'm like, man, I want to tell this dude, all these different things. And I mean, it's just funny because like he's super cool. He kind of gets a bad rap.
Yeah, he does.
It was like when I'm actually watching the game, I'm like, dude, like you gotta care, like, you know what I'm saying? Like then the young guy, and then it was like as soon as I got there, I'm like, okay, Jay Cutler plays here. He's the quarterback. I think Tannehill had just went down, so I'm like, man, I want to play against this dude. I want to pick him off in practice. I want to, just rip him a new one for the Bears and whatnot. And then you're watching him throw passes effortlessly down the field, and just like, okay, I got some respect for the guy. Yeah. That was funny, but I was like, man, it's just like shit, like. Growing up and seeing his face on TV to like seeing his face in person, it was like I just got this, fan urge. I was like, I see how some of the fans can feel someday. But yeah, good dude though, good dude.
And Jay Cutler is one of those guys who just like the talent was off the charts.
Yeah.
Right? But
when he came into the NFL, his talent was ridiculous.
Man, I'm telling you.
I think he's like one of the most under or misunderstood, football players out there in the last 20 years. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different stories that you hear about his character that you hear other people say, nah, he's nothing like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's
just crazy. It's just crazy how, the media can really shape you how they want you to be when it comes to like, those top tier players. So yeah, because I'm sitting there being a fan watching comments. So I'm like, I do see that, man. I do see this dude doesn't care and X, Y, Z. And then you get to practice with him, and then you're like, oh, he actually is, a good dude. So that was good to see.
Yeah. Now, Justin, do you have like, athletes when they choose to play a sport, they don't never go into the sport and say, oh yeah, I can't wait to speak to the media. I can't wait to just be around the media. Like, it's nothing that you prepare for as an athlete. You prepare for game. You prepare for your your technique. You're practicing all of this stuff. Like, is media, is the coverage, is everything that goes with that, is it overwhelming? And does it make you kind of like walk on eggshells sometimes and say, listen, I got to make sure I stay correct. I got to make sure I don't slip up here because, you know, this can be the end of me. Like, how does that feel as an athlete? Because I'm sure it's nerve-wracking. It has to be.
Yeah, for sure. Just because you know that, like, anything you say, you know, you're pretty much putting a stamp on it. You know, you're pretty much putting it out there. And just you know, when you're going for interviews and stuff like that, you obviously you know, just within like preparation for it, you know, you have kind of like the media guys and you know, the PR people will come in and with the rookies and say, you know, it is important, you know, how you talk, because it all reflects not only the team, but it reflects yourself. And, you know, you are, you know, the owner of yourself. So this is how you'll always be portrayed, and things like that. So I think they do a good job, you know, when you're coming in as a rookie, to tell you how important that is and stuff like that. And then there's times where you can take it too serious and stuff like that, which I had to learn. But credits to Beast Mode Marshawn Lynch for kind of lightening the mood.
Shouts to Beast Mode.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So like right after him, you see all these crazy interviews. That's fun. I think it's fun because these guys get to, you know, kind of defend themselves in ways that they couldn't before. They always had to take the safest answer, or they've always had to, you know, do things like that. And I think there are times where you have to protect your teammates and protect injuries and inquiries about that kind of stuff. But it is fun to see, you know, when Marcus Peters get this interview. I'm always looking. I'm like, man, MP, I know MP got his interview. I want to see what he says. Yeah. So it's always fun because it does lighten up how, you know, even DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, it does lighten up the mood when you see guys that are able to kind of be themselves and relax a little bit during the interview. But yeah, definitely coming out, you prepare for it. I think even earlier in college, I think they should start preparing earlier in college. Because,
I agree. Yeah.
You know what I mean? To how to conduct yourself and how to speak, how to, you know, every time you're around somebody, it's an interview, even if it's not formal. You know what I mean? So I think they need to start that a little bit earlier, because I know for me, I was fortunate enough to be, you know, the captain of the team and stuff like that. So I was always put in the spotlight to be able to talk and to be able to interview and things like that. Now, some of my teammates, they weren't able to. And then, you know, as you know, for the draft and stuff, that's one of the biggest things is the interview. But this is how we see your character. You know what I mean? So I think they should do a little bit better job early. I'm not sure if they do or not, but I know when I was there, that's one thing that, like, once I left, I was like, man, I wish I would have, you know, focused on that a little bit more.
You know, I think if you'd ever need a reference on how to treat the media, you just watch Jerry. Right? Talking about foxholes and all these analogies, man.
Oh yeah, if you can throw them off, it'll
right.
I don't even put that in. I don't even know how to
make them think they know what you're talking about, right? And they don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. That was the funniest thing when the Cowboys were introducing Mike McCarthy as their head coach, and you just kept hearing, man, if I had to pick somebody to be in a foxhole with, it just the craziest thing. But I think that's so funny. Early in your career, were you hazed as a rookie?
We actually had like a no hazing type of rule.
That's no fun.
So in Kansas City, you know, we didn't have to sing. We didn't have to really do any of that. It was like, man, we're not hazing. We're gonna treat people, you know, good off the rip. That way, you know, we'll be able to use some of these guys. But I do think it's fun being on other teams and our rookies having to sing and having to put on skits and stuff like that. So I think that's always funny. But I do have a funny story of being kind of hazed. And that's in Seattle. It's pretty much like a team-wide joke that they do to newcomers. And it's kind of like, I really don't want to give it away, but basically it's kind of like a team-wide joke. They have like a safe code where it's like, oh, the joke is on. And then they get you on stage somehow, some way. And then I know when I was there, they used, you know, all these different stories. Like Pete Carroll's up there, and I think we were like 1-3 at the time or something. So I'm like, man, this is a serious moment. You know, he's like, man, like, who's going to be the next story that kind of turns this program around, man? We got Doug Baldwin, who, and I just keep hearing people saying code words like it's safe, it's a safe place or something like that. Like I just keep hearing, I'm like, what are they talking about? And one of my teammates I came from Kansas City with, he didn't give me any type of heads up or nothing. I'm just like, I'm in this thing blind. I'm like, yeah, safe place. I just keep saying it myself. The people next to me laughing and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, safe place. I'm new. So they're like, man, I don't know who's the next story that's going to be to inspire this team. How about Doug Baldwin, you know, in the incubator until he was 3 years old, and all this stuff. It's not really registering. How about, you know, Luke Wilson, who you know, was adopted and went through all this stuff. And it's like, well, we want to hear from Justin March, you know, get on stage, maybe his story or you know, kind of get us over that hump. So as I'm walking to the stage and stuff like that, Russell Wilson grabs my arm, and me being a man of faith, it's like, you know, Russell Wilson's a man of faith. And he's like, just let it out, brother. We got your back, brother. And this is like one of my first days there. So I'm like, man, this is sentimental, man. I'm gonna go up here and share my story. So I get up there, like, you know, speak louder. I'm on the mic, like, yeah, where are you from? And then as soon as you get to talking, nobody cares. Everybody start hitting you with stuff.
Oh.
Sit down. Nobody cares. We don't care where you're from. Sit down. And they're all throwing paper and bottles and stuff at you. And it's like a big, like, hazing joke to newcomers. But it was but the whole Russell Wilson thing threw me off, man. I mean, I'm like, man, this dude's such a good dude. He's like, grab my arm. That's it. He's like, he was like, we're here for you, brother. We got your back.
He set you up.
Yeah, he said, man, he's right in the front row. So I'm like, man, I can't let that. In my head, I'm thinking about all these things. Like, man, I gotta show up for this, man. I gotta get the team on track and all that kind of stuff. It was funny.
Real quick, Matt, before we move on, because you said you're a man of faith, and so am I. So I gotta kind of I gotta ask you, you know, how throughout your career, throughout your whole life, you know, how has the Lord inspired you and, you know, gotten you to where you are today?
I would say I wouldn't be where I am today without it, without faith, without, you know, my Lord and Savior. And I don't think I will be the type of father I am, the type of husband without that faith. I think there's times that I've been through adversity, and we all go through things, and being able to have something like a foundation that catches you, or that embrace, you know, that lightens up that fall when you actually do fall. I think that's the most important thing we can have. And there's times where I didn't have it. So like when my father passed away in 2016, you know,
a little technical.
I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna build my faith. This idea of having elite faith, that if anything happens, I will not be shaken. I will not be discouraged, anything like that. And I will always set a prime example for my family. Sure enough, 11 months later, my younger brother passes away, and we were like best friends, like a year and a half apart. And I'm not going to say it was easier. Well, I will say it was easier to handle my little brother's death, and him and I were very close, than it was to handle my dad's, you know, passing, because of where my faith was in that situation. You know what I mean? My faith was a lot greater. So just knowing what my faith did for me during that time, and then, you know, it's like I'm bouncing around. I'm on 3 different teams. Like I need to find a home, or something. I believe and all that. My faith is what kept me grounded and solid to be able to, you know, just keep glorifying God in what I did, and knowing that if it didn't work out, that it was for his best interest in myself. And it was funny because the whole time I was praying, I was like, you know, Lord, don't put me where I want to be, put me where you need me to be. And sure enough, a few teams didn't work out. And then I come to Dallas, and sure enough, it's a lot of guys here that, you know, had faith, but didn't know how to express it, or wanted to know more about faith, and wanted to know how to overcome adversity, and wanted to know what does it truly mean to have faith. And I think I was able to bring that in my time with the Cowboys. And that's one thing, that's the greatest accomplishment, more than, you know, getting an interception or getting tackles and things like that. So I can leave Dallas knowing that God played a huge role in letting me be a platform, you know, to use him and let other people use me.
That's dope.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, Justin, that actually ties really well into my next question. So if you know, people who might not be as outspoken about their faith as some others might practice it a little bit more privately, across your journey from the NFL, you know, playing for 4 different teams now, how abundant is faith in the NFL, and how many of your teammates have you had conversations with about it and reach some common ground?
Yeah, I think this past year with Dallas was probably the most I've ever heard a team talk about faith and talk about, you know, the Lord, and actually have questions. And sometimes the questions are more like arguments. We're arguing about things, which is nice because, you know, God's there and God's working. So I think that was awesome. And a lot of other guys, man, it's crazy how much when you get to talking about faith, and you get to talking about adversity, some things that your teammates go through, you don't even know about. you don't even know what happened. And it wasn't until God was in the conversation that they felt comfortable enough to bring it out and to talk about it. And then someone else was like, hey man, I went through that, 2 years ago. And it kind of opens up the floor, and it kind of makes you be able to, relieve some stress, knowing that someone else went through it, and just seeing how God kind of worked them through it. And I think that makes it easier when you go from different teams and stuff like that, because there are a lot of people who bounce around and go to different teams before finding a home. There are people who, are starters that end up not being starters and just being on special teams. So there's a lot of players that once you open that box and that conversation, you can definitely find somebody to relate to. And I think that's the greatest thing about being in the NFL. Everybody comes from different places, backgrounds, they're in different, places in their faith.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who I watched growing their faith. Dak being one of them. Zeke coming to every Bible study.
Wow.
Bringing his questions. A lot of things that people don't know. These people do it. You know what I mean? And
that's dope.
And that, what I'm saying, it's like a lot of these big time players that the media might shape them out to be this and that. I mean, they're in Bible study every week, asking questions and then taking it to the locker room. So I can never be upset or mad about any of that, because I know these guys and just watch them. I mean, there was times where when I first got here, I didn't see Zeke. You know what I'm saying? I saw Dak occasionally, and then it was like by the second year I was here, it's like, man, all these guys are coming, and it was to the point where we had to bring more seats in. And that's the greatest accomplishment.
Yeah, that's great.
Football's gonna last so long, you know what I mean? But just to see how our team kind of stuck together and asked questions and had faith conversations, it shows you exactly the adversity that different people were able to talk about. So of course, when Dak lost his brother, and they're like, oh, how can you be, whatever the media was trying to make it up about, or Skip, or whatever the heck he said, that kind of pissed me off, about his brother. So I'm like, man, he's been vulnerable because he has faith. And you're just kind of
that he was very outspoken about it, and it's like, if he's comfortable doing that, you shouldn't be judging anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Right, because faith allows him to do that. Why do you think he did it? Because he has faith that his situation will impact the next person.
Right.
If the world lived more like that, we would have a better place.
Right.
Like it's really simple. So that kind of pissed me off. But just seeing what that, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you, J March. I mean it. That's good stuff, brother. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. No worries.
So, Justin, I have a question for you. I need one answer. Okay.
All right, I got you.
Would you rather be a player that played on a team that was super successful, won a lot of championships, and you didn't play that much, or would you rather be the guy that played a ton on a team that's not successful in your career? What type of player would you rather be?
Man, I would rather be the type of player that didn't play as much, got the win, got to see my teammates win, be a part of a championship, because it's a lot more things that people think might not go into it. So for example, being a player who didn't play as well, I mean not as well, but didn't play as much as other guys play, I don't devalue my role, because if there's anybody who's getting hit after hours for football with Sean Lee, it's me. I'm carrying the football. I'm running routes against them. I'm doing things like that. So I feel like my role, being able to my legs be fresher and things like that, and when guys need extra reps and extra looks and stuff, I'm able to stay out after practice a little bit longer to, play that role. And I feel like when it's just funny, because like if I do something in practice to give Jalen or Sean them a look, and then it comes up in a game, and then they make a play, I feel like I made the play, because it's like, man, we went over this. I was servicing you while that, and I never see it as, man, this player is better than me and I should be playing. I mean, the more you do that, the more you miss out on like real relationships and real football. So definitely, I'd rather have the less playing time, less role, win championships, because there's one thing you can always say is like, man, I got rings on my fingers. I got, Right. I was a part of that team. Ain't nobody gonna ask me, man, how much you play, man. I was part of that team. You know what I'm saying? But you can, like, I could tell my son, man, I was a good player, watch this video. He might watch it, but if I got a ring, he like, that's cool. He want to put it on. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
So I think that's doper than being that star player who balled out, and you got all these accolades and all that kind of stuff, but never really were able to be a part of a championship. I think that's the greatest thing. I mean, you're world champion over everybody.
No, listen, shouts to you for that, because like, the reason why I asked that is because it shows character a little bit. Like, a lot of times people don't really understand the makeup of sports. Like, everybody kind of looks at, oh, this guy's not starting. He's not this. He's whatever. You're in the NFL, like you're in the NBA or whatever it is. Like, you are one of the select few, like a 1% that are playing this game. So it's like, whether you're starting, whether you're a practice guy, you're still contributing in a very important role to your team. So shouts to you for that, for definitely, explaining that and making people aware of that. This is, everybody has a role to play. So definitely.
Right. Exactly. Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. We ask this to everybody that we interview. And it's sent certain people into a tailspin. I wonder what it's going to do for you. Justin, who is the greatest athlete of all time in any sport?
Greatest athlete anytime. I'm kind of biased, but greatest athlete in any sport. That's tough. Are we going off athletic ability or impact?
That's up to you.
It is up to you, brother.
The most athletic person in any sport. See, I wanted to go with. I mean, the thing to go with, I'll go to LeBron. He can pass and all that stuff, but I'm not even a tennis fan. But Serena Williams.
All right,
we're talking about a phenomenal elite athlete that no one else can do what she was able to do.
Yeah,
so I gotta go with that. Even though it's like, I mean, have you ever tried to play tennis?
Yo, that's not easy, man.
No,
not
man,
easy.
I'm telling you. I wanted to say LeBron or Russell Westbrook because them are some explosive athletes, but explosion with hand-eye coordination, with movement,
skill,
being able to win, overall top athlete. Got to go with Serena Williams.
Yeah, I like that answer.
Serena Williams,
especially as a woman.
Is that our first Serena?
That is our first female.
Nice.
And that is our first Serena Williams.
Nice.
Man, I'm trying to give my daughter some hope, man.
We did an interview earlier. And you know what's amazing is we got an animal before we got a woman.
Wow, that's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
That is.
We got secretariat before we got a woman. Isn't that amazing? That's unbelievable.
That's unbelievable.
So, all right, awesome.
That was good,
solid,
man.
Though.
That was
solid
good.
answer.
We finally because we were always asking, like, yo, who's gonna say Serena? Who's gonna say a woman?
Oh
first?
Serena's up there, dude.
And what's crazy is that we still have not got a LeBron yet, like officially.
Yeah. So you don't have LeBron.
You don't have a LeBron yet.
Yeah.
We got two MJs, no LeBron.
That's it. Our only repeat answer is Michael Jordan.
Yeah. I can see that too. Yeah, but Serena different, man.
Nah, Serena different.
No, she's a beast.
Man. Well, listen, Justin, it was a pleasure having you on the show, man. This was fun.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for the opportunity, and this was definitely a great interview. Hopefully, we can have you on some other time during the season. So,
awesome.
I'm Barry Grant Jr., host of the All Even podcast. We have Mike Guido, host of Guido's Gridiron Blitz, Matt Catarizzolo, and this is All Even exclusive, signing out.
All righty, thank you.